But I think one of the things to take note of in this take private of EA, and we talked about it as the theme of AI empowering EA to kind of transform the business. And Jared's brother, Josh, has at Thrive been executing a roll-up of CPA accounting firms that he's then applying AI to reinvent that business.
A bunch of lawsuits. On this app, you can opt in and make your persona, like Sam did, available to everybody to use. So that whole concept of notable persons allowing their image to be used, you opt into that. And that's pretty clever. So you can you can make it so your friends can, basically make videos of you, but nobody else can.
You see, what's happening right now in the world of business and AI is absolutely historic. Private equity firms that once relied only on traditional finance models are now being forced to rethink everything. And it's AI that's driving this change. Investors like Josh at Thrive are proving that artificial intelligence can take something as old-fashioned as accounting and completely re-engineer it into a data-driven powerhouse. This isn't just optimization, it's transformation. But the shocking truth is, most private equity companies can't keep up. They're led by people who don't even understand software, let alone AI. That's why the future will belong to those who are owner-operators, the ones who can move fast, make bold AI-driven decisions, and reinvent their industries before competitors even wake up.
Can I just make one comment? And I'd like your guys' know about the private equity stuff, because Chamath made a comment that private equity is baked. But I think one of the things to take note of in this take private of EA, and we talked about it as the theme of AI empowering EA to kind of transform the business. And Jared's brother, Josh, has at Thrive been executing a roll-up of CPA accounting firms that he's then applying AI to reinvent that business.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
Oh, I should talk to him, because we have an investment in a company called taxgpt.com that is basically like co-pilots with AI for accountants that's doing spectacular.
So what he's done is he's bought these kind of traditional accounting firms at some multiple of EBITDA, and then he can transform the business with AI and really create a new opportunity. And I've said, I think this is one of those few moments in history where there really is an opportunity to beat the market and make money in the public markets if you can be thoughtful and selective about the companies that stand to benefit from an AI execution strategy. Because in all of these traditional kind of markets where you have competition, everything's commoditized and the market is mature, it's very hard for any of these players to differentiate product, service, and obviously, unit economics. But with AI, it's completely transformative and has transformative potential in nearly every industry. So as a public market investor, if you can identify those opportunities, select them where the management team has the right leadership in place to execute against this, you could make real money. The problem is most of these companies are not led by folks that understand AI or software first. And so I think there's an opportunity for more buyouts. They're not going to be of the $55 billion scale.
It's worse than that.
In what sense?
So we at 8090 have done the dance with all the big major private equity firms. And here's how it goes. It always goes the same way. The partners love it because they're looking at minimal distributions, companies that are like good but not great in many cases. And they want to see improvements to EBITDA and performance so that they can either sell them or move them out.
And you're sorry, so and you're saying looked at this. You've looked at this with their portfolio
I've talked
companies,
to all of them. Yeah, all of them
with their existing portfolio companies.
Yes. Okay. So the GPs are like, "This is genius. We should do it." Then they're like, "Here's a handful of companies to go talk to." And I'll be really honest with you. What you find in most private equity portfolios are B and C companies run by C and D folks.
Yes.
And so the ability for them to go and embrace this is basically next to none. So if I look at my customer distribution and concentration at 8090, okay, run rating into 9 figures already, working on a $300-400 million deal, okay? Not a single dollar comes from a private equity firm. Although we spent initially a lot of time trying to sell it, trying to sell our software factory and trying to sell work into them. It's really hard. And it's what you said before, Freeberg, which is the people incentives at these businesses are misaligned to the AI outcome.
Right.
And you can't fire these people. And I don't think the right answer is to fire them. So I don't know what the right answer is. This is why I think private equity is very challenging.
Do you think there's Do you think there's a power loss situation where perhaps a handful of investors in the public markets and perhaps a handful of investors in the private markets can identify and then put the right people in place and execute against these strategies, like Josh is trying to do with his CPA
I think
role?
Josh is smart, so I think Josh will figure it out no matter what. What I'm saying is, if I can show you 20, 30 customers, a ton of revenue, all these white papers that show upside, and I still can't get it done inside one of these companies, I think it's not us, it's them.
Right. So it's not inherent in traditional private equity to do this either, which maybe begs the question, is there a new kind of private equity that can execute this? Maybe that's an opportunity, like Josh is showing, right? Like he's a venture investor that's executing a private equity strategy. And maybe that becomes the play.
I think if this works well, two of our biggest customers are individual decabillionaires who own businesses, and they're like, you're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So to the extent that Josh looks more like that, which is an owner of 100% of the business where it's like, you're going to do it, then I think it can work. So
That's
I think
like the Saudis. Right?
I think the owner-operated model is the only way the AI transformation really works. And then at the other end of the spectrum, it's the public market CEO who realizes that they have to do something real because they'll otherwise lose their job or they'll be disrupted. Those are the two cohorts that I feel today are on their forward foot. Everybody else is like sticking their head in the sand.
Just on the EA front, I forgot to ask you, Sir Demis, my Greek brother, didn't he show it's always the Greeks who get these things done.
Yeah.
Didn't he show like the 3D engine that would make like infinite games?
Yeah. So it's not actually a 3D engine. It's a class of these AI models that can render what the experience is, looks like and feels like a 3D world, but it doesn't have an underlying kind of traditional object rendering engine. It doesn't have a traditional 3D physics engine. So it's a new way of experiencing these kind of world interaction systems. And there's several startups. I think Fei is her name, the Stanford AI professor.
Fei has one, yeah.
And she has one of these. It's a virtual worlds company that has the same principle.
I asked Bromberg and Alex about exactly this at dinner.
What was their take? Yeah.
He said it's just really, really hard to get these things to actually be legitimate engines at the scale of what Unity offers for the quality of game that needs to be made for it to work.
The interim step is going to be the assets in it are created by AI. That's what I've seen a lot of startups doing. So you want to make a character, you drop in characters,
That's
and
exactly
they can
right.
be done in real time.
I think you're exactly right.
Can't,
The whole thing is Unify and Unity as the rendering engine, and the AI sits on top. And the AI basically can render objects, can render concepts, can render structure, can render the direction that you as an engineer would typically provide to the Unity or Unified 3D engine. And that's going to unlock not just in video games, but also in film
You're
and other
100%
content.
right. Can I tell you an example? Yesterday, there was, in our group chat, a bunch of people sent around the Sora.
The Slop app. Yeah.
And I downloaded it just to play with Sora yesterday. And the first video that came up was exactly this. It was like a ATP tennis match where it was a guy's face, the guy, like imagine you, and then playing against like a Federer. And then I thought, well, what if he was playing against his friend and that was the actual video game? To your point, you get away from all this IP licensing, gatekeeping stuff, and you can just get to good games faster, good content faster. I think
they're
right.
adaptive in terms of the competition. So you're not playing somebody who's going to just dominate you. It just get 5% better every time you play it. You'll get 4% better, and it'll just make it perfectly challenging. So you don't quit, and you'll learn as you go. It's really going to be an interesting
and the
new world.
The same will exist in like content, Jake. How like you'll make shorts and films, and then the ones that have the most engagement, the AI prompting system will get better and better, and ultimately it will yield like bits of content that people are going to say like,
see that
"Oh my
happening
god!"
with Star Wars or Marvel. If all of a sudden Silver Surfer is an interesting character to you, or Ashoka Tano is interesting to you, it'll sort of make that world or enhance that character and tell you more of their backstory. And that can be really interesting as
how you can sit in your seat and like make fun of me, call me a nerd, and you actually know the name of this Star Wars character. I don't even know who you're talking about.
This is a very important character. Ashoka is Anakin Skywalker's Padawan. She's a very important character. If you watch the Clone Wars, you would know this.
Now enter Zuck and Sam Altman, two titans shaping what media and creativity will look like in the AI era. Their new tools, like Sora and Vibes, are more than just fancy apps. They're testing grounds for the future of entertainment. Think about it. You can now create entire videos, even movies using only AI prompts. Sam Altman's Sora, despite its legal controversies, is showing how AI can blend creativity, identity, and interactivity. It's like TikTok on steroids, except this time, the AI learns from you, adapts to you, and helps you tell your own story. But here's the twist. This isn't only about fun or social media. It's a complete shift in how humanity creates and shares culture. We're entering a world where every person becomes their own studio, every fan becomes part of the story, and every trend evolves in real time. Traditional Hollywood and big media won't vanish, but they'll have to compete with everyone. So whether it's AI transforming Wall Street or reinventing Hollywood, one thing's clear. The next decade belongs to those who understand how to work with AI, not
Zuck and Sammy the Bull have both released
The Bull.
Sammy the Bull.
Gravano,
like
what a pull. What a deep pull. Sammy the Bull Gravano.
There it is. And here's a look at Sora. It's objectively extremely impressive. Here's Sam Altman. People don't know this. Early in his career, when he was starting OpenAI, didn't have the money from Elon. And here's Sam Altman stealing an H100. Here's Sam Altman also. This is when he was storming the Capitol on January 6th. Here he is when he was working at Google. Yeah, lots of, but it's really good. And they are basically taking a ton of risk and solving some problems with IP. As we all know, the IP outputs is where people think you're going to have to be really thoughtful or get a bunch of lawsuits. On this app, you can opt in and make your persona, like Sam did, available to everybody to use. So that whole concept of notable persons allowing their image to be used, you opt into that. And that's pretty clever. So you can and you can make it so your friends can, basically make videos of you, but nobody else can. It's a thoughtful way of doing it. However, very controversially, this thing had everybody's IP in it, and you have to opt out if you don't want your IP used. That's going to get him another whole collection of lawsuits to go with the New York Times and Ziff Davis ones. And there have obviously been a bunch of settlements now. Anthropic settling their book thing for $1.5 billion. So anybody play with these tools yet? And what do you think, folks? And what's the point of these? Do we think this is like a TikTok competitor, Chamath?
I mean, I think
do you think it's just a way backdoor to training data? What do you think?
The closest thing is a TikTok competitor, but I used it. I thought it was okay. But again, the thing that I keep in mind whenever I try these apps for the first time is today is the worst it'll ever be.
Sure.
It only gets better from here. And so if you look at the starting point, it won't take but a year where this thing, I think, or maybe 2 years, where this thing is legitimately excellent. It has to get the scripting right. It has to get the prompting right. It has to be a little bit easier for you to use. There was a bunch of prompts that I used that were rejected by the
IP, right?
Well, it just said use me, but I couldn't validate that I was me, and so
you have to take a picture of yourself. It's a little clunky, the app right now, but you're right. It's going to get better in each version. The one by Zuckerberg is called Vibes. I was looking at these Sacks, and I don't know that this is intended to be like the next great social media app as much as it's a data play to get folks to train data. When you see them, any thoughts on them other than interesting? Yeah.
I haven't played with it yet, so it's hard for me to say.
Freeberg, you got any thoughts on it? Just
no, I don't have thoughts. I think, we're kind of early innings. I do think there's new categories of media that none of us are really considering today. The traditional media, as I've mentioned in the past, is centrally produced and then broadly consumed. And I think that there's models of media that are going to emerge that are going to create new business categories or new business models and also new media categories that are all about kind of distributed production and not necessarily central production, distributed consumption. So that kind of changes things quite a bit. And I think maybe this is going to start to open that door a bit. One of the things, because I thought about this, and I mentioned this in the past, where I'm everyone's going to make their own movie, their own video game, their own music. But there is this notion of shared cultural context. Everyone wants to talk about, how did the 49ers do this weekend? Or did you guys see that show Adolescence? Did you guys, we want to have a conversation about some shared stories. That's the basis of kind of societal interaction and memetics. So I think there are elements of this being the beginning of the enabling tools, but I don't think we've actually seen what's going to happen, which is how do you take one story and then create a distributed way of consuming that story where everyone experiences and consumes it differently. So I do think like this notion, it's like, hey, everyone's making fun of Sam or does some, like maybe there's some cultural context about Sam Altman that we all share. And then we're all like engaging with Sam Altman in different ways, So I think like we're very early and we don't yet know kind of how it's all going to play out. But I think that's really critical to keep in mind that we're still like getting there.
It is, something is lost because we used to all talk about the latest Tarantino movie or the latest, Sopranos episode, and we don't do it anymore. And we
do share stuff. We do talk about tweets and stuff, and there's other forms of
in group
media
chats
that we share.
But it's not like it used to be where 30, 40 million people would see Raiders of the Lost Ark and it would be the discussion of the summer or whatever it is. And so I literally bought 20 tickets to the new Paul Thomas Anderson, one battle after another, just so I could have a conversation with 20 friends about the new PTA. And so people really are longing for this shared experience. Paul Thomas Anderson, he did The Master. There Will Be Blood. Just
There Will Be Blood.
One of the great. I know
ever.
That, he's top 5 director of all time, but I know you don't care about culture. But
is he like Michael Bay?
It would opposite of that actually. Michael Bay makes things that go boom. Paul Thomas Anderson's that makes things that make you go.
Michael Bay is super cool, fun to hang out with, fun to party with.
Right. Okay. Well, way to bring it back to you. Hold on, you dropped a name here, Chamath. There it is. I don't know Paul Thomas Anderson, but it was a heck of a film. As Sachs. Sachs is actually very cultured when it comes to cinema. Did you see it yet, Sachs?
I have not seen it yet, no.
It's of the moment. And it's quite a roller coaster.
I heard it was anti-conservative, so it doesn't have some left-wing take.
No, it kind of mocks the left and the right. It's kind of mocking both extremes. You'd love it. I think you'll very much appreciate it.
All right, I'll check it out.
Yeah, I would check it out.
Hey, I have an idea. Why don't we find a topic that's interesting to talk about?
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. Well, if you contributed to the docket or showed up on time, maybe we could do that. Unbelievable. Just so you know the inner workings right now, there's a little resentment in the group because one of us decides to change the time of the pod for 4 weeks in a row and then show up half an hour.
If you're excited by where this future is heading, make sure to subscribe, like, and share, because we're diving deep into how AI is shaping business, media, and life itself. Stay tuned. The revolution is